Folktales.
Sabidam wadiang getting ghetto. Oh, sabidam wadiang getting ghetto. Roba pek boko tandem kuya kom Korean where even dodia. Oh, Korean where even dodia. Isopiwe getting ghetto. Oh, sabidam wadiang getting ghetto. Oh, sabidam wadiang getting ghetto. Once upon a time, in a faraway land in Calabar, there lived a man by the name Efik. Efik and his wife had a lovely daughter and named her Imabong. She grew up into a very beautiful lady that was sought after by all the young men in the village. Imabong was very beautiful indeed, but very, very proud. No man in the entire village was good enough for her. They were either too short, too fat, too slim, or too ugly.
These are vain things, my daughter.
Her father once advised.
You shouldn't focus on the outward appearance alone. There are other attributes that make up a good man.
But Papa, any man that would marry me would have to be perfect,
She retorted. Imabong! Imabong! Where would you find such a man in this world? Her mother cried. But Imabong did not listen to her parents' admonition. She insisted that she was not going to marry any of the men who had come for her hand in marriage, and that she was too good for them. One day, Imabong was at the market when she saw a man walk up to her. Instantly she thought,
this must be the man for me.
for he looked perfect in every way. He was very handsome. His height, his size, and everything about him was just right. To crown it all, he looked like a very rich and wealthy man. And so, Imabong thought she had found the perfect man she had waited for all her life. After conversing with Imabong for a while, this man requested to meet her parents, to which Imabong readily agreed. She was quite eager to marry this man that she didn't even care to ask where he had come from. Her parents were worried about their daughter's sudden decision to marry this stranger. They tried their best to warn her against marrying him, but she stubbornly ignored their warnings. Alas, her mind was made up, and the marriage rites were conducted between Imabong and this stranger. Everyone in the village was amazed at how Imabong was able to eventually fulfill her dreams of marrying a perfect man. Her wedding became the talk of town. He spent 2 days in his in-laws' house, after which it was time to embark on the journey to the stranger's hometown. It was indeed a long journey, for they went farther and farther away from everything and everyone that was familiar to Imabong. At first, Imabong was not bothered about this, for she had understood that her husband wasn't from her village and that he must have come from very far away. So she didn't ask him any question. However, when they got to a certain place, Imabong sensed a strange change in the atmosphere. Unknown to her, they had crossed the boundary between the spirit land and the land of humans. Almost immediately, he informed her that they would be visiting some of his friends from house to house because he had to return some items he had borrowed from them. Confused, Imabong wondered what the items could be. When they got to the first house, Imabong observed the strange manner in which they greeted one another. Something was awfully wrong, but she couldn't place what it was. And then she noticed that her husband's arms were taken from him. Shocked, her eyes widened in surprise. It was at this point that she realized that she was no longer in the land of humans. She tried to turn away and run for her dear life, but it was too late, as her husband warned her that this was impossible. And so it was that as they went from house to house, her husband returned his body, his legs, and finally his head. Apparently, he had borrowed these body parts from his friends when he was coming to ask for her hand in marriage. Imabong wept bitterly, regretting her disobedience. If only she had listened to her parents' warnings. If only she hadn't been arrogant and full of herself. She had wanted a perfect man, not knowing there was none. Oh, she wept sore. Eventually, they got to her husband's house. He turned her into a slave who was to care for his old mother, who could barely do anything for herself. Imabong waited on her day and night, cooking for her and taking care of her the best she could. The old woman soon grew fond of her. One day, the old woman told Imabong that everyone in the spirit land are cannibals and that they would want to devour her once they get the chance. But she would help her escape and return to her parents because she was kind to her. And so, she told her to go into a room where she had different sizes of clay pots. However, before she entered the room, the old woman advised her to pick only one, and it should be an unattractive one. And when she has chosen, she should smash it on the ground, after which she would vanish and appear back in front of her parents' house. They said their sad goodbyes. Then it was time for Imabong to go into the room the old woman had instructed her to enter. There in the room were different sizes of clay pots, many of which were shiny, colorful, and extremely attractive. Every one of them seemed as though they screamed for her to pick them, and she was tempted too, but for the old woman's advice. Just then, she caught sight of a small, unattractive pot in the corner of the room that looked as though it told her to pay no heed and ignore. This was the pot she chose and immediately smashed on the ground. No sooner had she smashed it than she found herself back in front of her parents' house. Her parents were quite happy on seeing her, thinking she had come to pay them a visit, until she narrated her horrendous story. The story of Imabong's plight in the land of spirits spread fast across the entire village that even the Obong soon heard of it. The Obong then passed a decree that parents should never permit their daughters to marry strangers from far away. Efik was able to marry off his daughter Imabong to one of the young men from their village, and they lived happily ever after. The